Welcome to Tune In Tuesday. This month, February 2023, I'm going to come to you each and every Tuesday night instead of just the second and fourth. I've got a brand new series called In Love with Fun Folds, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let's get started. Fun folds are great when you want to mix things up a bit and not just do a traditional simple open card. But sometimes it is difficult to remember the different fun folds that you even know how to do. So we're going to create templates that you can put away in a box and just look through and grab one and go and make a card of your choosing. I'm going to first show the template for the card that we'll be making, and then I will create a card from scratch. We're going to do 3 cards tonight, so buckle up. This fun fold is a pretty quick and simple one. The part that's going to take you the most time is determining and die cutting or punching the shapes for this little medallion piece right here. But as you can see, you need layered circles. One of mine is scalloped and one of them is not. This size can be adjusted. So if you have a smaller sentiment and you want to make it smaller, you can. If you have a larger image or sentiment, you can make them larger. So just be proportionate, which means that you'll want this to be adjusted based on your circles. Now I think this one that's here is probably a little bit big for the size circles. I'd probably come down a 1/4 of an inch, and I'll show you that when I get to make my new one. But you just want to have them a bit in proportion with one another. The other thing you can do is this can slide. So you could have this over here. You can shorten this piece right here if you don't want it sticking out. All sorts of options here. You will need ribbon to tie around here if you want at 14 inches. And so the dimensions for this piece are on the back. So this base right here is 1 3/4 by 5.5 inches. And again, it can be adjusted. And I'm going to score at 1.5 inch. And I wrote wide here. It's a wide score, almost a double score. And I'll show you how to do that. That will allow it to lay a little bit more flat. And it will flatten out a lot in an envelope anyway. And the top layer, the DSP right here, is 1.5 by 3 3/4. And as I mentioned, 14 inches of ribbon. This layer is just your typical front layer, 4 inches by 5 1/4. This inside layer is 4 by 5 1/4. And then we have this white layer that is 3 by 4 inches. So we did start with a card base that was 4 1/4 by 11, scored it in half at 5.5. So let's see how this plays out. So I know I'm going to start with my base. So let me see if I can leave this in view here. So here's a piece that is 4 1/4 by 11, and I need to score it at 5.5. We'll put this down here at 5.5, and we'll give it a good score. Next, we will fold on our score line. And where'd my bone folder go? That's a good question right here. Okay, so now we have that in half. I also have this piece right here that is the same as my base, same color, and it needs to be 1 3/4 inches by 5.5. So that's what this measurement is, and we're going to score it at 1.5. Now I did adjust this a little bit. I made this 1.5 because I didn't want it quite so wide. I'm gonna still score at 1.5 though. And again, I'm gonna fold and crease. Now, remember I said it's a wide score, and I put my score away because I forgot. So here's what I typically do. I score it at 1.5. And then I move it over just a slight little bit. Like it's not even something that shows up as a measurement. So I have a really wide score, and I just really kind of work it so that it's got a little bit of a thickness to it. It's a really wide score. All right. You can see that what happens is this gets tucked underneath. And when you're attaching it, my suggestion is you attach it with the front closed so that you know that, this is going to be able to accommodate this piece coming in. So let's go ahead and attach that. I just need to apply some adhesive to the bottom here. And we'll put this roughly in the center. And I want to see the score line off the edge of the paper, because then I will know that it is, it can bend around this card front right here. Remember, I have this inside DSP piece. So I have taken this gorgeous new paper called the Fancy Flora DSP from the mini catalog. And here is, I've actually cut them out both out of the same pattern. And I need to decide which one's gonna go on here. I'm gonna put this one on the front, I think. We'll just apply some adhesive around here. This particular piece has soft succulent, which is the base cardstock that I used. And it's got soft suede and white and evening evergreen. So lots of just really sweet, rich and caring tones there. On the inside, I'm going to use the other side. I'm gonna figure out which way I want. I think I want it this way. I would cover up this beautiful side. And put this down here. Now we need a piece that is 3 inches by 4 inches. Here's a white piece that's 3 inches by 4 inches. We're just going to glue that down. Now, if you wanted to stamp on this, I'm going to just be, this is going to be a card that's really meant just to not have a stamp inside necessarily. It just will have a sentiment. But if you wanted to stamp on it, you would stamp first and then adhere it in case you made a mistake stamping. You could always flip it over. So there we have the inside's all done. Now we need to figure out the outside. So on this outside piece, I'm going to go ahead and bring in this piece. Now, originally, this piece was 1.5 by 3 3/4. But remember, I had adjusted this. I had taken 1/4 inch off here. So I took 1/4 inch off here. And so this is 1 1/4 by 3 3/4. And I can choose to use this side, which when I'm here, it almost doesn't look too much different than what's there. Or I could use this one. Does not matter. I think I'm going to use the regular side, the prettier, what I would deem the prettier side. It is important to pay attention to the direction of your patterns. All right, so there we have that. I've gone ahead and I have cut some circles using my layering circles. And so here's a soft succulent piece that matches the base there. And now I need to stamp a sentiment. And I'm going to bring in my Evening Evergreen sentiment. Going to bring in my Evening Evergreen stamp pad. And I have a sentiment from the Charming Sentiments stamp set. This says faith over fear. So I'm going to give this to someone who's going through a bit of a difficult time in hopes that it encourages them. Just adhere this to the scalloped circle. And again, there's nothing magical about this shape. You can use squares or ovals, rectangles, other kind of layered ones. And then I'm going to pop these up on dimensionals. So when I put this on here, I can cover it way over here if I want to. If I had wanted this centered, obviously I'd want to cut off some of this, and you can still do that. It's not too late. You would just make a nice clean cut with your trimmer. And I say clean cut, don't cut with your scissors because it won't be straight. And when it's open, you will see the edge here. But I'm gonna make it just like my sample. And some of this sticks over, so you want to be careful where you put your dimensionals. You don't want to stick the card closed. So there we have that. And now I need to bring in a ribbon. Well, I don't have to, but I think I want to. So let's see. I can either do Evening Evergreen like my ink, or I can bring in Soft Succulent. I think I like the contrast of a darker one. So I'm going to use this open weave, and I didn't pre-cut it to 14 inches. I like to tie it on with it's still attached, so I waste less. However, it is a little bit more cumbersome to do it this way. So if you want to just cut 14 inches and be done with the struggle, you can. This is a little slippery here, so here we go. We're just going to play with the ends to get them tight and just how we want them. That looks pretty good. Go ahead and trim the ends here. And there's our card. Certainly if you want to add some bling, you can. I think that because of the sentiment and who I'm sending it to, I'm not going to add some bling to this. But there's your card. This has a nice, unique little opening. Very simple. This next card has some similarities to the last one, naming this little flap element here. And I don't know if I would call it a focal flap. I don't know what this fun fold is, but it's similar to the last one. So the difference though is that we have, whoops, sorry, I've got a piece of cardstock in there. The difference is that we have a shortened edge over here. Obviously, it's going in a different direction than the other one was as well, but it's got a bit of a different element here, and we've got 2 designer series papers showing. So let's see how to make this. So you always want to look for the card base instructions first on your template. So I've written them inside here. So the card base that we're going to start with is a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece, and we're going to score it at 4 1/4. So just as though you were making a typical card. So I've scored it at 4 1/4. Now the next direction is that you're going to cut off 1 inch from the front right edge. And front right edge, it doesn't really matter which edge you're going to do right now because you'll fold it to make it you know, the front right edge. You just need to cut off 1 inch from one end. And I'm going to use the opposite end of my ruler over here. I'm using the 1 inch over to this side. Hold on to this piece. See, it says save for flap. And if I take this out of the way and I make a nice crease with my bone folder, this is what's going to allow it to lay the most flat. I mean, laying in an envelope will help, but so we have this. This is going to be our little mechanism over here. And so if I jump over to here, I can see that I need it to be 1 by 3 1/4. So we already know it's 1 inch. I just need to trim this down to 3 1/4. And what I forgot to write on here was score at 1 inch. So I'll slide this over and I'll score it at 1 inch because we have to have a way of tacking it down. All right, so there we go. We will be anchoring this right here. And because there's no other one to catch right over here at the side, I can anchor that right in line here. I don't have to stick it off a little bit. Let's go ahead and get our glue over here. Now I've got this flap centered, or I will have it centered. You can put it obviously wherever you would like. I'm gonna guesstimate the centeredness of this. We're just gonna tack that down, just like that. Now this gets hidden by some papers. So you do want to make sure it is right up against the edge though. Okay, so there, that's good. So on the inside, we need a basic white or vanilla piece that's 4 by 5 1/4. That's got to go in here first. And again, if you want to stamp on this, if you don't trust yourself and you want to stamp first, and really it doesn't have anything to do with trusting yourself, because sometimes, you know, an ink pad has a dry spot. You never know. Again, I think I am going to do some stamping in here, but I want to put in this little piece as well, because that's going to be what's shown when the card is closed. So I'm going to adhere that to my basic white piece. So this is the Hues of Happiness Designer Series paper that coordinates with the Happiness Abounds stamp set and dies. I'm going to put this right on the edge here. I'm gonna push it all the way over to the edge. And so this is now the area that I can stamp on. Let's see if we have a stamp to use there. Let's get out my Happiness Abounds stamp set, and there's plenty of sayings here. I'm going to go with the wishing you all the happiness you can imagine. Now if I can read that, that's right here. And we'll pop that onto a block. And I'm going to stamp this in, the yellow will be too light, so let's go ahead and stamp this in Granny Apple Green, which is the other color that's in this paper. What I like about this particular sentiment is that I can turn this into a happy birthday card, or it can be a wedding card, an engagement card, any of those things. So I've got some versatility going on if I'm making a card to just sort of make it to have on hand. I mean, obviously you can just wait until you know what the occasion is and then add the sentiment. I've die cut a little flower. I can't put this right here though, because remember when this is closed, some of it's going to peek out. So I would have to put this on the inside. So if you're placing any other sentiments, you want to make sure you keep it in the white. We'll go ahead and tack that down. Or glue it down. It's not really tacked. It's there to stay. Go ahead. Put that there. All right. So now we need to decorate the front of our card. I'm going to bring in another piece of that Designer Series paper. This is actually the piece that we had cut off for over here. I'm going to bring that in and use that on the front. Lots of pretty vibrant colors in this. Nice border all the way around, and I'm kind of lining up to make sure that these edges match. Oh, look, my Band-Aid matches. By the way, love my outer space Band-Aids. I thought I'd jazz up my fingers because they were chewed up in stuffing lots of envelopes. I'm going to bring in now some layering circles, except I don't have a top circle here. So this front piece was 3 by 5 1/4, and that's because it's a normal layer, except for we had cut off 1 inch, remember? And then these layering elements, you can use 2 circles, or you can do what I did, and I stamped one of the flowers from Happiness Abounds, and I colored it in with my blends. When I stamped it, it didn't stamp fantastically in the center, so I hadn't used it yet, but I've got a plan for that. I'm going to stick this up with dimensionals. I'm layering it onto a scalloped circle of Granny Apple Green, kind of mimics some leaves sticking out there, I think. And we're going to affix that right here. I think I want it sort of centered in the card, so we'll put it right there. I'm going to add the glue to this piece, and I'm not using dimensionals to adhere it because I've used dimensionals on the flower. I'm just going to give that a second to set up so you can see what it's doing on the back. Now, just an idea too, if you don't like this unfinished look because it's 2 different colors, you could certainly put a matching green scallop circle right there. You could add an image right here. You could do all sorts of things. But what am I going to do to finish this card now? I'm going to bring in some bling. I'm just going to bring in some rhinestone basic jewels. And we're going to put a bunch into the center there. And then nobody will ever know that the stamping was not what I wanted it to be. So there aren't any mistakes in stamping. It's just some creative opportunities. And this is an uber blingy card, that's for sure. All right, so there we have all those little dazzling diamonds in the center. Wouldn't that be great if they were diamonds? Trying to put my package of rhinestones away. All right. And so there is our card. And again, to get this to lay flat, the flattest possible is using a bone folder to kind of train it where to go. But the envelope is going to secure this down and get it kind of trained also, because it'll be squished in there for a while. If you're worried about some of these coming loose in the mailing process because they're bumpy, first of all, there's a lot of them together, so it's a nice hardy surface. I think that would go through the mail fine, but you can always layer a piece of cardstock over the top when you mail it. This is typing paper. If you wanted just a lighter one, you could as well. That just will protect it a little bit. But there is your second fun fold of this Tune In Tuesday. This final card is called a faux center step card. It's going to be difficult for me to show you on camera because of the way it sets up, but the card stands up. Maybe you can see it from this angle, what's going on here. So we've got this little staggered step here, and there's room on the back to write. Alternatively, if you don't want to do that one, you could cut a piece that goes right in here, and so it's sort of hidden from display. But this is a pretty simple card. And as always, we're going to start with the base. And so we find the instructions for the base, 5.5 by 8. And we're going to score it 3, 6, 7, and then accordion fold it. So let's go ahead and bring in our paper trimmer and our supplies. So I cut a regular piece of sweet sorbet in half. So this is 5.5 by 8.5. And remember, we want it to be 5.5 by 8. So we will just trim this down just a tad. And then the directions said, remember, to score at 3, 6, and 7. We're going to score at 3, 6, and 7. And then there's another piece that we're going to need. This little piece right here, that is 3 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. So this is a piece that measures 3 by 8.5. I'm going to score this at 4 1/4. All right, our scoring is done. I'm going to bring back in my original piece, and there's a score line here, here, and here. And I'm going to accordion fold it. So I'm going to fold it one way, and then the next fold will come back the other way. And then the last fold is the same as the first fold. So here we have it. Some people will call it a Z fold. It's not really a Z because there's more to it than a Z. But bump, divot, bump. Okay. And then on this one, we're just going to burnish on that score line. And then we need to decorate it. So if I bring in my measurements or my template again, I can see that I'm going to decorate it with some DSP down here, and these DSPs can be the same or they can be different. For my card, I'm going to have them be the same. So I've got a piece of this Country Gingham Designer Series paper. For those of you who took my Love Cats class, here's another idea for this paper and for the Love Cats set itself. I'm going to put that right on there and center it. Okay. And then I need a piece that goes in here. And so this measures 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. So So that's what I've got that cut at as well. So it's very important that you do decorate these two panels first before you add that step piece. Although I suppose that you can add this one anytime. It's just not as easy when there's something covering it up. So there we have the front of our card. We're going to bring this in and we're going to adhere it. We want to make sure that when we're adhering it, we're using a pretty solid adhesive. I'm going to bring in my tear and tape. You could use glue. It just takes longer to set up. I use my tear and tape here. And it's a fairly wide panel, so I could use 2 full pieces. I'm not. I'm just going to use a second partial piece here. And this is going to get attached right down even with the bottom. So you can see that my tear and tape isn't going to stick out. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite end. Now, if you are not planning on writing on the back of this easel part and you want to hide your message, then you can make the back of this a little bit shorter. I think it's pretty easy having both of them the same size, because then the side doesn't matter. I'm going to take the adhesive off one of the ends. I'm going to center this right down at the bottom here and press. Now this, when the card is finished, is going to fold flat for mailing, and its measurement is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Huh, imagine that. All right, we're going to take off this. Sorry, that was snarky, wasn't it? It's late when I'm filming this. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I've had a long couple of days due to some issues at my workplace with sprinkler heads bursting, causing a mess. So there we have our card basic. Now this is unattached here. If you wanted to put a piece of tear and tape or even just glue right there and stick that down so it stays down, you're welcome to do that. It's not necessary. The card sits nicely anyway. But if you don't like a little bit of a gap when it's standing, then go ahead and adhere that. And I'll show you that it doesn't make any difference to how the card works. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue in there, hold it down for just a second. All right. And so then it just sits a little bit prettier that way. It's probably the way I prefer, but it is not needed. And now we just need to decorate this. So I am bringing in, I need 2 pieces that measure 2 3/4 by 4. One is for the front. Whoops, that's the wrong measurement here. I must not have cut that one down. Here we go. So this is 2 3/4 by 4. And the other one I didn't cut down either. Not quite sure what I was thinking. Truth be told, I probably grabbed a scrap and didn't even pay attention to one of the measurements, just assuming it was the right size. So there's the back. That's where you can write a note. You can do another little stamping thing over here if you want to, but that is the back. I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. Why not? This, aside from making my template, this is the very first time I'm making one of these center step cards. So this was time number 1, but it's not real because there's no stamping on it. This is time number 2. So we're going to stamp that here. I'm going to bring in my love cats. I love these little kitty cats. They're so cute. I'm going to take this guy who's all curled around here. I'm going to get a block to stamp with, which I can't seem to find the right size block that I'd like to use. Well, we won't worry about it. We'll just use a bigger one. That's okay. I'm going to set my card aside. Now, well, not too far aside. Let me see what's going on here. So I need to know where I want my cat to be. Do I want him up high and then a sentiment underneath? Do I want him down low? Do I want him in the middle? I think I kind of want him in this upper portion right here. So it looks like there's about an inch between the top of his tail and the top of the white. I'm going to stamp that way. I have sort of an idea of what I'm going to do here. Now with this ink, a Stamparatus would be a really good thing to use right now. Ooh, looks like I got a good re-inking on this one. So, but a Stamparatus helps you make sure that you've got the black nice and black. We're going to keep this right here for a second. Let it sink in. Yeah, this is why I need a Stamparatus. It's not quite black enough for me. I could flip it over and try it again. Maybe I will. Sometimes the stamp needs to be primed a little bit, which means get ink on it. Ideally, I really would use the Stamparatus, but I don't want to take the time at the moment. Yeah, I need the Stamparatus though. I'm going to bring in my Stamparatus. Now, when I'm using the Love Cats, because they are a solid color, mostly solid color, I really want a good inking. And they're cling, they're red rubber, so I can't just reposition it again easily with a regular stamp block. So for instance, I stamped this a little bit earlier. This is one inking, and it's just a little too light for me. I want this cat to be black, 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 and that's because I have a kitty cat here that is very dark, very black. Everything is black, even her nose. The only thing not black are her eyes. They're gold. All right, so I'm going to bring in this Stamparatus. And I'm going to bring in one of my magnets and hold that there. I'm going to position the kitty cat where I want it stamped. So about an inch from the top, maybe a little bit less. I'm going to close this. I'm going to pick up my stamp, and now it's time to ink it. So you can put your stamp set underneath here. And we're going to ink it up. And then we're going to stamp. I'm going to get my little hockey puck disc or whatever you call it. I don't know. Now see how it's a little bit light in areas? So I'm going to ink it up again. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get the perfect image. So the Stamparatus will give me perfect placement. I can see just a couple more spots here by her paws. I say her because my cat's a female. Her name is Charlie, with an I at the end, not an IE. All right, now it's a very nice, bold, strong image. So I am done. I can clean this stamp, but I'm not gonna make you watch me do that. I'm just gonna get this out of the way for now. All right, we're gonna bring this back in. One of the things I want to do is I want to take a Stampin' Blend, and this is Sweet Sorbet, and I'm going to color this little heart so it coordinates. There we go. And we're going to put our little Charlie girl right there. Now I am going to embellish a little bit more, but let's do first things first. Put my card on. My kitty layer. All right, that's pretty good. I'm going to bring in some Sweet Sorbet metallic. Let's find the metallic woven ribbon. So it looks kind of pinkish, but it does have darker flecks in it and goes really nicely with this gingham paper. So we're gonna wrap that around. I think I'm gonna wrap it around a couple times. We'll see if I can do it. Get that in there. There we go. I'm just gonna get a little bit of, something sparkly, shiny. I'm gonna cut this end here and so I can tie it in a bow. Tie this off to this side since the heart was on the other side. It's hard tying bows when you've got band-aids on your fingers. I'm hoping they're going to heal up so I can go back to using my fingers the way I'm used to. All right, so we've got a nice little string there going on. What else can we add here? So I think I can bring in some of these pastel adhesive backed sequins. These are from the mini catalog, and they just have a, they have a pinky kind of, they've got a multicolor glow here, but I think it goes nicely with the gingham. It's just a different look. So we'll put a few of these on here. Maybe we will. There we go. Don't want to put it next to the heart though. And I do have some other, where'd it go? I do have some other ideas. So we'll put that down there. I'm going to move this one. You ever do this? You get it in place and you think, nah, it's not quite right. I do it all the time. All right, so there we go. There we have that. And I'd probably, my bow is upside down. So I would have to fix that. But I'm not going to take the time right here to fix it. Fixing it would mean retying it, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and add a little sentiment here. So I think it looks like he's saying head over heels about you. But you know what? I haven't made any Valentine cards yet, and Valentine's is coming up. So let's go ahead and do the Hi There Valentine. I'm going to get a scrap of white. I'm just going to repurpose this little card piece right here. And I'm going to stamp in Sweet Sorbet. There we go. All right, let's bring in my oval punch. We're just gonna punch that right out. And I think, now see, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take this little guy off of here and put him down here or up here or somewhere there. And we're just gonna affix this right off like that with some dimensionals. So usually when I come to you live, and I can't find my big dimensionals, let's see if we can find, we'll use some scraps. Usually when I come live to you, I know what I'm gonna do. I've got the cards all designed ahead of time. I was winging this one, gotta be honest with you. But I'm running out of time because I've got to get my car. Oops, I put this one over too far. I got to get my car's remote starter installed this week, which means I can't film tomorrow night. And then Tuesday, this has to go live on Tuesday. Well, I got to get things done. There we go. Just like that. And I can't stand this. I can't stand this guy, so I'm gonna have to tie him again. I would say it's misbehaving like my cat, but this cat is a very well-behaved cat. Doesn't do much of anything, except for fight with the other cat, which is I'm not crazy about. She's just a little jealous, I think, that's all. You know what happens when that second cat comes in. You get a little feisty with each other. Oh, that's much better. And so there is our little step card. And we can write something on the back. Like maybe that's a place where we could write the head over heels about you. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to take a chance. Because, and I am taking a chance because this is already anchored down. So if I make a mistake, I'm going to have to peel it up or do something else. Let's go ahead and put this on here. I'll get my sweet sorbet out again. And we'll stamp this right up here and give myself plenty of room to write. Oh, perfect. Phew. And so there is our faux center step card. Thank you for joining me. Remember that if you would like the class kit so that you can create these 3 fun folds and have the templates already made for you, then simply place an order of $35 or more before shipping and handling and tax in my online store using the link that is in the description of this video, and I will send that out automatically. You must order for this week's templates and projects. You must order by Sunday, February 12th. And I hope you will join me again next Tuesday where I will create 3 more fun folds.